Hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here. Glad you're there. My wife Barry and I just walked in the door, actually, a few minutes ago. We were in India and we did a layover in Amsterdam. And now back to good old Dallas. You know, it's fascinating, by the way. India in and of itself is fascinating. Amsterdam, once upon a time, that was the place where Jews really wanted to flee to. People were so liberal in a world that was just so enraged against Jews. In that liberal environment, Jews flourished. And so it's glad to be there. In any case, I'll talk about a tough world, not just Jews, but Jewish believers here. In Acts chapter 9, I want to look at verses 1 through 9 there. Saul, who was introduced into the story earlier, who's going to become Paul the Apostle. We're told in verse 1 that he is still breathing out threats and murder against the Lord's disciples. There you go. I mean, he was just hell-bent on the demise of the movement. And he went to the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and he requested bench warrants, in effect. He wanted to drag off believers to prison. You know, it's interesting. You know, religion, people say, well, I just don't believe it. I don't see it that way. This guy was really ramped up. He took it all personally. He was really intense. People say, well, when Paul got saved, he just, everything about him turned around. I say, not really. I mean, he was a real intense guy before he became a believer. But then when he becomes a believer, we get these energies working for the gospel instead of against it. Well, he is here. He's like a religious dermatologist, and he thinks that Jewish believers in Jesus are acne on the face of first century Judaism, better just to remove it. And he's taken it upon himself to be particularly proactive. He wants to bind individuals belonging to the way and bring them back as prisoners. So he has secured warrants to get those involved in the way. We're told in verse 3 that his plan was interrupted suddenly. A light from heaven flashed, and falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? You know, I like this in part. I like it when anyone comes to know the Lord. Here's a problem I have, just to God's honest truth. I don't understand the whole business of being second-generation believers, you know, where you're a believing family, you raise the kids up and they're believing, because I just didn't come from that world. I mean, what I'm all about now, it really is just so radically different from the way that I was raised. Something happened experientially and just knocked me off my horse, changed my trajectory in life. That's why what I'm all about right now. And that's what happened here. This guy had a close encounter. And the Lord just is working through circumstance. He's presenting himself. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Saul says, who are you, Lord? He says, I am Yeshua. I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. I mean, the text starts with he's breathing threats and murder against the Lord's disciples. But it's interesting that Jesus is already dead and gone. You know, he takes it personally when people offend us. It really is offending him. He's offended by that, you know, and the voice from heaven, why are you doing this to me? We are his body. We're intrinsically related to the Lord like that. Get up, in verse 6, he said, go into the city and you will be told what you must do. It's interesting that his turnaround begins with this sudden flash. He's knocked off his horse, he's blinded, he's confused. And then he's going to come to his wits incrementally. As you read on in the story a little bit, and we'll see it, that he was blind for a couple of days, and the Lord dispatches a disciple to come and pray with him and give him some instruction. You will be told what you must do. And what he was to do, what his life was going to be about, was going to unfold incrementally, not speedily. Here, initially, It's incrementally. And he will meander around. He will be proactive in ministering. But then in short order, relative short order, he's going to go back to Tarsus for 10 years where he came from. We know nothing about him. He's picked up later on in the narrative, and I'll wait, till we get there. But it's 13 or 14 years later. It's not all on the quick. And sometimes you just don't know what you're to be all about. You don't know what it's going to turn out. You just don't. You just be faithful. That's all you do. You walk through the doors that the Lord opens, and you look to serve him well. And we're told what we need to do. I mean, we get it. We get these words. The men traveling with him, we're told, stood speechless, hearing the voice but seeing no one. I mean, they weren't cognizant of all that was happening. This is a private moment, really, that didn't entirely make sense to them. Those that were accompanying Paul, didn't entirely make sense to Paul. But something happened. We're told he got up from the ground. But upon opening his eyes, he could see nothing. And they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. He went there to wreak havoc, and now he has to be led in there. And we're told for 3 days he could not see, and he did not eat or drink. It's the old get knocked off your horse. It's the story of an encounter. There's a story here of a trajectory that's changed. I would say that if you look at the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Society, the Tree of Life Society, all that we're engaged in, these are people that were knocked off their horse. Danya Greenberg, who founded this, she never in a million years thought she'd be a rabbi's wife. She never thought that she would be in the Bible translation business. This is her vision. In a million years, I mean, I'm holding up a Bible. I'm reading from a Bible here that has the imprint from Baker Books, our version of the Bible. I remember when I was a new believer, I'd read books from Baker Books. I never thought that I'd be associated with a Bible translation from a major publisher. Never saw that one coming. The life is full of surprises. I joke around with my wife, Barry. I say to her, you are the way, the truth, and the wife. I hope the Lord isn't too mad at me for that. But it's a play off of when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And he is. And would it be that we hear his voice and we respond and let him lead us into the future and mold us as we go and grow? Well, that's my prayer for you. I'm going to let you go. Thanks for walking with me for a few minutes. And may the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face to shine upon you, and be gracious unto you. Let's do this again in a week. Ciao.